Oh, welcome and thank you for joining us on this Tuesday night for our first ever The Pundits Panel, the guys that put pun into pundit. Hopefully we can share some stories of cricket with you over the next 45 minutes to an hour. We won't keep you too long. Hopefully we can have a bit of a laugh along the way and some news on cricket across the country as well as locally. We've obviously got a packed programme because there's been quite a little bit of decent cricket on lately, so we've got plenty to discuss, I think. But please do give us some comments, ask us questions, raise some topics. We'll be happy to discuss them, of course. So please do put something in the comments box and we'll do our best to answer them. So without further ado, I'm obviously going to introduce our first presenter. And he'll need no introduction because he's been with me on the Masked Cricketer for the last 9 months or so. So it's welcome to the one and only K-Dog. Good evening.
Hey, hello.
Should be an India shirt, I reckon. But
no, I haven't got one. One. Hello, Woodsy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
How exciting this is. We've got double figures watching us on YouTube live.
Which is amazing. Please hit subscribe, like, share, hit the notification button. You'll know when we go live. So please do that if you can. And the other thing, I think, this program started pretty professionally with our graphics and music. Kieran, what do you think of the new music there?
Very impressed with that. I was just expecting the previous one to come. You never tell me what's coming. You always keep it a surprise for me. Yeah. I'm not sure what you're dressed up as tonight, though. You look like you're dressed up as a cricketer. So
well, that would be a bit of a come down, wouldn't it? To be fair, and a bit of fantasy actually. Let's be honest. But I think, Kieran, we need to get our guest presenter on tonight.
How exciting. Is it going to be Alistair Cook?
It could be Cookie, couldn't it? Of all the stars we've had, could it be Aggers?
Or have we given the spoilers out earlier about who it's going to be?
Oh, I don't know. Will people guess? This is exciting. There's a drum roll. Kieran, can we have a drum roll, please? It's welcome to the Oxfordshire and Banbury legend.
Hey!
Good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen. What an absolute joy to be on this show. I'm following in some serious footsteps, really.
Well, we had
these
minnows on before you, Megas. We thought we had to get the mega star on. So welcome and enjoy the next hour or so with us. Guys, I'm going to start with some sad news tonight. Obviously, it's been all over social media that Oxford Downs, Oxford Downs secretary Roger Berriman sadly passed away on Sunday morning, if you like, and it's a big shock to us all at the club, and our condolences are to Judith and his 3 daughters, and our love to you at this sad time. I'll come in first with my recollections of Roger. Roger, I've known over 30 odd years through Oxfordshire cricket, where he was the finance director for some time, and he would walk around the boundary. He would be at a game for Oxfordshire, home and away. He would have his kit in the back of the car just in case anybody pulled a fetlock, and he did actually play a minor counties game in that situation at Shrewsbury, strangely enough. So he was always prepared, and he was always prepared to help people in the club. I mean, people have been coming up to me and saying, when I first joined, he was one of the first people to come up and have a conversation with them. So he was that sort of chap. And also from me, and I love this, and people might think I'm being a little bit sort of crass here, but Roger was, he'd walk around the boundary and he'd tell you if you've had a bad game, he would right up there and say, what a rubbish shot you've played today. Why did you do that? But I liked it. I kept my feet on the ground when I was playing for Oxfordshire, for sure. And you need people like that saying it as it is. So, and he did that at Downs as well. But his heart was in the right place. He wanted his team to do well. And I have to say, he will be sorely missed. He was such a gent. Megas, I know you would have had about the similar experiences with Roger. Well, what's your recollections?
I've got loads like you, Daryl. I first came across him mid-late 80s when Bolton Vale were allowed into the Charwa League, and I played against him then. And Rog was at the back end of his career then, but he was a good bowler, slow bowler, as you said earlier, Daryl. But it's just a guy that gave a load back to cricket as well. As soon as he finished playing, he was involved in administrating his club, county, all sorts of different things. And then, of course, he was on the Charwa League umpires list. And if I can tell the famous story of the game he umpired in, it was about 3 years ago. It was a match between Hawley and Banbury Thirds, of which I was skipper of the Banbury team. Dave Clark, who you both know, was a Hawley captain. And Hawley had scored 290, and we were 80 for 9, and they were rubbing our noses in it. But their two bowlers had bowled 17 overs. And Clarkey completely took his mind off the ball. And James Bridger, who was our number 11 batsman, couldn't believe that one of their opening bowlers was going to bowl an 18th over. And Rizzy walked down to Ross Freeman, who's at the end, and said, "Look, Ross, if they bowl one more ball here, we win the game." So he did. And poor Rog was the guy who was the umpire. And he was absolutely mortified what had happened. And I think it prompted a rule change. And he came up to me and said, "Oh, Megas, I'm so sorry." I said, "Rog, you just want help with us again, mate. What are you drinking?" And he laughed at that. We chuckled about that ever since that particular day. And he's just a guy that's given a load to cricket, and in particular Oxfordshire cricket. It's a real sad loss.
Kieran, I know you'd like to pay your respects because you wouldn't have known him quite as long, but there's still a considerable time.
Yeah, I knew him predominantly through Oxfordshire cricket, to be honest. And he was the man with the money, wasn't he? And he was always the one that helped Oxfordshire cricket get the funding in place for some legendary cricket tours for our junior players. He was a massive supporter of junior cricket. Obviously, a club coach at Oxford Downs, and brought a lot of the youngsters through at Downs into the successful club they are now. I know the likes of James Elwood and George Sambach and others at Downs particularly are eternally in Roger's debt and grateful to all the efforts that Roger put. I do have a memory actually of Roger, and it was his competitive edge even as a club coach and a player way back in it must have been early 2000s. I was at Minster Lovell, surprise, and we had a semi-final against Oxford Downs, and Minster Lovell clearly the big underdogs for that game, and Minster Lovell inexplicably managed to win the game. And I do remember Roger wasn't best pleased with his team, but he didn't slate them. He didn't have a go at them. He came over and shook hands and such like. And but I just knew that I remember Frankie Crouch. It was my abiding memory. Frankie Crouch sort of I think he was 17 or 16 at the time. He was a bit upset about it, and I did remember asking him why, and he said, "Oh, Roger's he might look okay at the moment, but deep down he'll be seething." But it's just because he loved cricket and he loved to develop cricket, and it was a huge shock at the time. And in terms of what he did for Oxfordshire cricket, secretary of the minor counties for so many years, the financial treasurer rather of Oxfordshire cricket for so many years, and that's always the thankless task, isn't it? Whenever you go to a cricket club, the one position that's really, really hard to fill is treasurer, financial man with the money, because you have to be very good with numbers. B, you have to be completely on the ball all the time. And also you have to make some tough decisions at times. And I think Roger was one of those people that could make tough decisions. He wasn't a man with an open checkbook for certain. It had to be there had to be reasons as to why why money was spent. He was very not tight. I'm not going to say tight. He was very frugal with the money, but it was the way it should have been. And actually, I think he's actually quite instrumental in the success that Oxfordshire cricket's had now, just in terms of the work that he put in for many, many years. And I have, like you, I have experiences of Roger commenting on my own personal game. Clearly not quite in the same bracket as you two legends of the game, but Roger has seen me play cricket, and his only advice to me when he saw me bowling was purely and simply just don't. Basically, that was it. Because you can't bowl. He said your arm comes from behind you. He said you look a cross between Latith Malinga and Paul Adams, which I thought was quite good at the time, actually. But I think it was actually him criticising my bowling action, and I have actually given up bowling, and it's kind of not terribly down to him, but he was right. I was rubbish at bowling, and I'm not that good at batting. But what I will say about Roger is, you've seen all the tributes that have been on social media this week, literally hundreds of tributes, and you don't see that very often for anybody. From all across the cricketing fraternity, not just in Oxfordshire as well, I hasten to add, from across the UK. And that, I think, shows the magnitude of the man and how much we're going to miss him. And I'm going to miss him. I'm going to miss seeing him around the boundary at Oxford Downs, because he was part of the fixtures and fittings. And I hope that we'll continue to see, I'm sure we will continue to see Judith there, because she's another massive supporter of Oxford Downs. I just want to read a couple of the tweets, if that's okay, Daryl, before we move on. So, the likes of Graham Scott, the Premier League referee, he said, extraordinarily sad news for the Whitley community, the sudden passing of Roger Bowman. What a wonderful gent and a huge servant to Oxford Downs. The National Cricket Counties Association, they've said exactly the same sort of thing. Roger was one of a kind, a true gent, that the whole of Oxfordshire will miss him. It has actually affected the whole of Oxfordshire. It's not just affected the club. We've lost many, many friends over the last year, to various reasons, and this one has hit a lot of people very hard. It was so sudden, and okay, he was 80 years old, but I'd seen him just a couple of days earlier, and he was his normal cheery self. I was walking the dog, and he sort of made a joke about the fact that the dog was walking me, which he was, because everybody knows what my dog's like. And he was just his normal chirpy self. So I suppose the one sort of solace, if you like, was it would have been it was sudden, and he was happy. He looked to me to be as happy as he ever has been. And my thoughts are with Judith. It's really sad times. And I think the whole of Oxfordshire, and Oxford Downs particularly, I think whatever sort of season we have this year, I think we should dedicate the season to Roger Berryman and raise a glass to him on more than one occasion, because he will be greatly missed.
Yeah, wise words, Kieran. That's the sad news of Roger Berryman, who sadly passed away over the weekend. He will be sorely missed. He was a legend. So let's move on and talk about some cricket then, guys. I think it'd be remiss of us not to start with the amazing Test series, Australia versus India, with an amazing comeback from the Indian side, with mainly their second 11. Let's be honest. But there's obviously some talent within that country, and they've actually pulled out an amazing victory. It's an amazing victory, chasing down 300 plus, on the last day of a Test match anyway. So, what's your thoughts, Megas? What's your thoughts on that series?
Well, I mean, if you think back to the first Test when India were bowled out for 36, I mean, to come back from that, astonishing. The amount of records and stats that have fallen in this match is just beyond belief. Then they had the brilliant rear guard, didn't they, in the third Test? But if you look at Kohli, Ishant Sharma, Yadav, Shami, Bumrah, the two spinners, none of those playing, as you said, Daryl. It's a second team. I think the team had 14 wickets between them, the bowling unit, which is a record for any team in Test cricket, I believe, apart from somebody playing their first Test. I mean, that's unbelievable. And I don't think Australia have lost in Brisbane for, I don't know,
1988.
Yeah, I think we were the last team to win there, weren't we? When Gap won the Ashes in the late 80s. And it's just an astonishing performance. But for me, the highlight of this game was Pujara's 50. I think it took him 220 balls. He was there 5 hours. He got hit 10. It was almost Brian Close-esque. He got pummeled by the Australian twigs, and the guy just hung around, dogged it. He knew, I've got some blokes that can win this game for me. I've got some stroke players, but they need somebody to put a solid base in. And I thought his innings, which has gone unnoticed for me, was just brilliant. And I think he's batted longer than most any overseas player in India for a long time in a 4-test series, which is astonishing. But I mean, what a match today! I mean, it's just one of the great series of all time. I think, without a doubt.
I'm going to come in there because I forgot to say before we went into the cricketing journey that I have got some phrases. If Megas or K-Dog mention certain things, they're going to get this noise. And they're going to be frozen out of that topic. So it will be frozen out for the rest of that topic. And I will use this when I think we've done enough of that particular topic. We'll move on to the next. So do watch out for the... Okay, so that could
sounds like a farting Teletubby to me. But, you know.
It's no box. It's just me making that noise, actually, strangely enough. But I think you're right, Pujara. I mean, he goes unnoticed so often because he's not one of the most attractive players to want to go and play cricket. But how important is those types of innings? Unbelievable. We see it time and time again. And he does it time and time again, for sure, in really important circumstances. What's your thoughts, Kieran, on Pujara and obviously that series, that's just finished?
Well, you know that I am a bit of an aficionado of Test cricket more than anything else. I'm not going to mention something which I'm sure is going to get. I'm not going to mention that because I think I can guess. But it was a proper Test match innings, wasn't it? And it's sort of in the Megas sort of fold in terms of the amount of time it took him. But it was all about building a platform, Megas. To be honest, it was the platform that he built. And actually, I was watching from about 6 o'clock. I got up this morning, and I always felt they were going to do it. I don't know why. It was very, very slow. But as you said, Megas, it was the fact that they had hitters to come, and they were very confident. And also, I think there's a little bit of karma possibly as well, which we'll come on to later. That
okay.
Sometimes you need to be a little bit careful about what you say to your opposition before you finish the series. There's a number of situations over the years that I know of where karma has come back to bite you on the bum, and I think it has on this. But I'm quite thrilled that India have done that. I'm less thrilled that India's next opponents are England because I think India are at the top of their game at the moment. Now, I'm not saying that England aren't, believe it or not, despite my negative tweets. But I think that'll be a really good series. But it is in India, so it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens. But no, I think Pujara is a proper Test match player. I always have done, and it's just really good to see. A strong India is good for world cricket actually, because Test cricket is slowly sort of going backwards. And actually, if India can be as strong as they can be in Test cricket, that will hopefully rescue Test cricket a little bit. And I think that's really important.
If you look at those Indian players when they won that match today, I'm sure they all love the IPL and it's great fun and their bank balancer swelled nicely. But there was an interview with Rashad Pant and he was in tears at the end of it, and that meant so much to those. You asked all these top Test players, Test cricket is it. It's great to earn some money and travel the world and have a 5-week hit and giggle. It's great. And we all love it, and it's great entertainment. But at the end of the day, these boys all want to play Test cricket. They really do.
Well, you only have to look at Virat Kohli, don't you? Virat Kohli has said many times that Test cricket remains the pinnacle. And I know Virat Kohli wasn't playing in this back end of this series, but if somebody of the legend and the status and the standing of Virat Kohli says that Test cricket is still the number one, who are we mere mortals to argue with that? I mean, I think the best player in the world at the moment, actually, and I think that it's refreshing to see a strong India side.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's interesting. You mentioned there Kohli not playing in those last 3 Test matches. Do you think that would have spurred on some of those players to actually be a little bit more comfortable, not letting the master at work? We've got to work a little bit harder. We've got to step up to the plate to help our team win a Test match. Do you think that's helped a little bit, Kohli not being there, or is that a bit detrimental to the great man himself?
Personally, I think it does, because I think, similar to what we always bang on about at our level, is sometimes you can rely on somebody too much and you almost go into a bit of a comfort zone, don't you? And you think, oh, if we don't get the runs, somebody else will. Without the world's best player, I think it focused a lot of minds. And I think that also the ill-advised comments focused a lot of minds as well. And Megas is smirking there, but I do think they did. No, I think that Kohli not doing that. Is that me off? No, it's not me off, is it? I think that Kohli not being there was really important for the Indian team, actually.
Yeah, Megas, what your view? Obviously,
I think
fans are ringing you.
Well, they are. Oh, yeah, I know who that is. Excuse me.
We don't just throw this together.
We do just throw this together. It's live on YouTube. We're not doing this anyway.
Sorry about that. It was my fan club secretary. And thank you, Mr. Sabin.
Megan, I think to you, what's your thoughts on the
I think all those Indian players are really hungry. I mean, there was those names I read out earlier, the 7-8 guys that weren't there. There's probably 2 or 3 players in this Indian team, maybe more, that might not play another test match. They played in one of the all-time great test matches, a great series win. They might not see test cricket again. They really might not. So they had everything at stake. They had an opportunity to go out there, get a score, win, do something, get another game in England. They're playing for the England trip now. And they were just hungry. And that was a full-strength Australian side, I think, really, wasn't it? Well, I'm sure there was somebody missing. But the bowling attack was there. I mean, some real quality bowlers. And they batted. It was just magnificent, wasn't it? I mean, just truly brilliant. And that's why we love this game, isn't it? You just never know.
Do you think as well they found a captain that really brings out the best of the players? What's your thoughts on the captaincy front?
A completely different character to Kohli, who's an in-your-face, wear it on the sleeve sort of merchant. Yeah, and it was. I think you're right. I think it's. And they've got some real headaches now, haven't they? Some selection headaches. They truly have. They've got a massive pool. I mean, to strength in depth they've got must be incredible. And fair play to them. It was just monumental against a really good Australian attack on a 5th day pitch at a ground where they don't lose. I mean, just unbelievable result. Truly unbelievable.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that we talk about Test cricket, and you've already alluded to the fact that it's my favourite cricket to watch if I can watch it. I haven't got Sky, so I'm struggling a little bit, but it's just great to watch. And of late, the Test matches have been superb. There's been some amazing finishes in Test cricket across the world. So I mean, just talking, I'll sort of move this on a little bit, but thinking about world's best, Virat Kohli. What's our view on? I'm a really big fan of Labuschagne. I think he's an outstanding cricketer and seems to be very competitive and consistent. He's a consistent performer. Obviously, Kane Williamson is at the top of his game, but I'm also going to bring Ruti into this. I really do believe that Ruti is somewhere near. What's your thoughts? Am I talking up the top of my head there?
It's impossible to comment. If you asked this question before the Sri Lanka game, Root for me, as his record is astonishing, but to put him in that top bracket, not for me. However, he talked the talk, didn't he, before the game and said, I'm a new man, I'm going to concentrate, and he bangs out 200, which for probably his best Test innings in many respects. He's got to turn in big scores like that, Darryl. Getting out at 50, 80 doesn't get him into that bracket. But it's really difficult. If you spoke to 100 people, said, I want your current Test team from all the countries, everybody would pick something different. It's really difficult. There's a lot of players, much of a muchness, I would say. There's not a lot that are absolute standout. Kieran, am I wrong there, or what do you think?
No, not at all. But I think the important thing to note about Joe Root, and I noticed this because I was watching bits of it, not all of it, I must admit, but I was watching bits of it. And even on day one, what I noticed about Root in this match was, and it's something that's been missing for a few years actually, and it's really important with Root because of the character he is, was he was playing with a smile on his face. Even before he got his innings, even before the double 100, on day one, he had a huge smile on his face. And my only concern with Root over the last few years, I'm not even that concerned. I know you are, Megas. I'm not that concerned even about his conversion rate, to be honest. He's a class player. But what I have been concerned about is I think he's had the weight of the world on his shoulders and he hasn't been enjoying his cricket, because you can tell that when somebody's enjoying their cricket because they're playing with a smile on their face. And Joe Root's spirit is infectious. We remember back to the Ashes win when he dressed up as Einstein and did the Bob Willis impression. He was the live wire in the dressing room. I know that he's captain and he's got to maybe just rein it in a little bit and be a little bit more sort of sensible. But seeing Joe Root like this week is refreshing, and I hope that's how we see Joe Root from here on in. I was watching him this morning actually on Good Morning Britain, and he was brought on air to speak with the only England fan that was in Sri Lanka, and he actually spoke to the England fan on the phone after the game. He actually rang him, and the England fan was stood up in the fort, and Joe Root was down on the outfield, and he rang him and he was waving at him. And I know he's just won this Test match, but Root is enjoying his cricket again, and maybe one day we may be fortunate enough to have him as a master cricketer. Maybe we can ask him that sort of question, because I think with Root, if he's enjoying his cricket, which he seems to be, I think that he is in the top 4 in the world if he's enjoying his cricket and he plays like he did this week. You can't blame him for the run out. That was just a little bit of kamikaze, just a little bit of panic setting in. It was a bit of a suicidal run from Johnny Bairstow. But no, I want to see Root like that every week.
I think the conversion rate is a problem for him, because that's what he actually said in his pre-match interview. He said, I've got to 50 and 70 way too many times and not gone on. I want to do something about it. That's basically what he said before this match. And he backed himself, and hey, the guy went out and got 200. So, yeah, fair play. And
really interesting, actually, Megas, because when we've spoken to the likes of Alan Lamb and Alistair Cook, their conversion rates are very, very good. And they said, well, no, as soon as I got to 50, the next target was 100. It wasn't 60, it was 100. And we wanted to bat as long as we possibly could to get daddy 100, basically. And those two individuals did it a regular, their conversion rates are very, very good. So that's good. A couple of questions that have come in, and I think they are relevant. I think we should answer them. Richard Giles has asked, do you think that Kohli is sometimes too arrogant? What's your thoughts on that? My thoughts is not, but I'd like to hear your two thoughts.
No, not really. He's a bit in the Viv Richards sort of envelope. He's pretty much the best player in the world, and he swaggers around like he is the best player in the world. No problem with that. I've absolutely
confident.
No, not for me. He's all right as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I agree, Kieran. Are you in the same?
Yeah, no, it's a yes from me as well. I think that he's just super cool and a super confident player, as he should be. I don't think there's arrogance there. Is it arrogant? I think there's always a fine line, isn't there, between confidence and arrogance. If you're the best player in the world, you can strut around and be confident in your ability. And I think that if you took that away from Virat Kohli, he'd probably be half the player he is. So no, I don't think he's too arrogant either.
Yeah, that's a good answer, I think. Les Addison is on board. Nice to see you, Les. He's said, fair to say that the Sri Lankan team lacks real standout bowlers at present. I don't know. I mean, he's probably right. They're not up as much as they have been in the past. But they gave us a bit of a shock, didn't they, in this last Test match? So should we, we've got to treat them a little bit cautiously, haven't we, in the next Test match?
Well, we have, but Les is right in that I don't think they've got a bowler averaging under 30, and I think only Matthews averages over 40. So we got a Sri Lanka side that's a couple of good players are missing. They've just had a whipping in South Africa as well, haven't they? So we've got them off the back of that. But as far as I'm concerned, I read out that list earlier of Australia players, Indian players who are not playing. And the team that we put out against Sri Lanka, we didn't have Stokes, Wokes, Archer, Anderson, Ali, Pope, Folkes, Stone. 8. And there's others under that. So we've got a hell of a pool of players. And I'm sure we'll rotate our bowlers around, which I think probably Australia should have done in this series. Getting back to them, all their 4 quicks played all the games. They all came quite quickly. Maybe that took its toll. But it's not the best Sri Lankan side, but it's in their conditions. They won the toss in Galle, and we shot them out for 130 odd. We haven't played, we haven't trained, we haven't had any matches. Excellent, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we did, but it was said, wasn't it, on day one by a lot of people that the batting really was kamikaze on day one. It was not good. It was schoolboy at times, to be honest. Having said that, I'm going to go along the lines. Yes, it wasn't great batting, and I think Dom Best struggled with his line and his length a little bit, but you've still got to get the wickets. And although the batting wasn't great, as you said, Megas, they're in their own conditions, and you're only one partnership. Even if you have 7 or 8 players that aren't up to scratch, you only have to have one big partnership in Sri Lanka and get 300 on the board batting first, and then suddenly the side batting second are under pressure. So I'm not going to. People won't believe this because I'm Mr. Negative, but I'm not going to say that it was all to do with Sri Lanka's terrible batting. I'm going to say that it was a little bit of both. I think there was some good bowling. I think Dom Bess, I think his figures flattered him a little bit in the first innings. Second innings, I thought both spinners bowled well, actually, but I think in the first innings, the bowling, spin bowling particularly, wasn't great. But I think you've got to give credit where credit's due. As you said, they're in Sri Lanka. Not that many teams, even now, not that many teams win in Sri Lanka. But they've got to win again on Friday, starting Friday, because if they don't, it's a 1-1 draw. Then there's the Test Championship still up for grabs. I think England are 4th at the moment, and if they were to have a decent series in India and then bring India back into the home conditions in the summer, then all of a sudden you could perhaps think of maybe England, New Zealand in the Test Championship final. And I'm not saying that that's the likely outcome, but I'm saying it's possible, and that's me being positive, Megas.
Well, that's worrying me, to be honest, Kieran. I'm not comfortable with you being, but I just think we've done a really good job in the circumstances. Frankly, I really do. And what was a really good story as well was Dan Lawrence. Now we've got a real nice little crop of good young batters in my view. Crawley, quality. Pope, who didn't play, excellent. And they are both lads that have come through the private school system, which is fantastic in this country, as we know. It produces lots of great cricketers. Lawrence is completely the opposite. Come through state school, his club Chingford. I think his dad was a groundsman. He used to run home from school. He'd train in the nets. He helped Chingford, I think, win the Essex Premier League in 2014. And he's moved up. And he looked really good. And the innings, in the second innings, under that pressure, I thought was excellent. And what 3 quality players. And it also shows what a good club can do with coaching a state school kid, because that's where they need to get there, as Daryl, as you know only too well. The state school kids need clubs to help them with coaching and facilities and games. And this boy's come up that route, and Crawley's come up a completely different route. It can happen both ways. It's good that it does. Be great to have more Dan Lawrences, obviously. But very encouraging, and bring on India.
I think we've rolled into the England-Sri Lankan game, so we'll carry on that vein. I think we might come back to 1 or 2 things that happened in the series in down in Australia. But my view on that as well. I mean, Root and Lawrence used their feet and they used their crease depth and width of crease incredibly well, and Root certainly swept amazingly. I'll put it to you that they played the perfect partnership on a slow wicket where they rotated the strike as much as they possibly could. I mean, Root, I think it was 150 runs that weren't boundaries in the 228. So it shows that there was a little bit of manipulation going along. And similar, there weren't many boundaries from Lawrence or Bairstow early on in the innings as well. So do you think that's something for me that's missing in our game, that we use our feet and we use the depth and width of crease? What's your thoughts?
Oh, completely agree. When was the last time you saw a young English batsman on debut in the subcontinent use his feet like that? I'm waiting. I can't remember one. Absolutely superb. And he knows, Dan, that with those players again that I read out, he's probably not going to be playing in the India tests. Unless he really bangs a couple of scores out in the next Sri Lanka one. So he's playing for his. He wants to be in that. So he's putting some pressure on the other guys who are not playing, which is fantastic. It's all about, isn't it? And but yeah, Daryl, their footwork. England we've been guilty, haven't we, over many years of not using our feet, hitting from the crease. But no, it was terrific on a pitch that's suited to the Sri Lankans. Brilliant performance, mate. Really good.
Your thoughts there, K-Dog?
Well, you know my thoughts on England playing spin, and I've mentioned a few times there are ways and means that young cricketers can learn how to play spin in this country, and Megas knows what I'm alluding to.
A tour to Jersey, perhaps, Kieran, at the end of the summer.
I'm not going to go into specifics, but we've historically not been great at playing spin, and I think watching those two, you're quite right. And also, you mentioned the running between the wickets, Megas. You've got to bear in mind that it was 90% humidity, temperatures in the high 70s, 80s. The fitness of those two, particularly Root, to bat for as long as he did, and it was amazing, and it was really encouraging to see. I think that Dan Lawrence has got a bright future, but it's very, very early days, and I think it's really important. It's really important, as we're very guilty, and particularly the tabloids are very guilty of doing this too often, of putting too much pressure on somebody too soon. But I think you're right, because of the competition for places. I think Dan Lawrence will obviously be on the tour. Clearly, he may not get a start in India, but as you say, if he racks up runs on in the second test, then he's going to ask a lot of questions of the selectors. And there are other players that are struggling.
What's really good for Dan Lawrence is that it's just not Dan Lawrence. It's not. In days gone by, it was Graham Hick, it was Mark Ramprakash that we hung our hats on. It was just them. We're talking about Ollie Pope. We're talking about Zach Crawley. We're talking about Lawrence. We're talking about some really good lads just bubbling under that as well. There's a whole group of them that are all vying for, 5 or 6 vying for 2 or 3 slots. James Vince as well, who's in and around. You're shaking your head there, you're not a fan. But no, these three of them that are probably fighting for one place, maybe. I think, good competition.
Yeah, I think that sometimes you need to move on from certain players. I think there's a question in the chat, actually, and this is something I was going to say. There are certain players that have had too many chances, and I think you do at some point need to move on. James Vince looks $1 million for 20 quite often. But that's no good at test level, to be honest. And I appreciate that a lot of people think that he's a class act, but he's in a similar vein to Ramprakash, actually. He is a class act, but whether there's a mental block there, I don't know, because he just doesn't seem to do it at test level. There's a question in here about, in terms of the Dom Best situation, whether if Moen's available, whether we'd swap him back for Dom Best. My answer to that would be no, and people wouldn't be surprised to hear me say that. And simply because England needs to start planning for the future now. They don't need to keep going back to tried and tested. Moeen has been struggling for several years, and bear in mind that the next huge series after India is the Ashes, and particularly away, Moeen's record away in Australia has been, well, I reckon probably you could do better, Megas, to be honest. So I think we need to move on from that. And I would actually, although Dom Best didn't bowl well, if he's the number one sort of spot at the moment, I think that for the time being, England need to persevere with him, because you can't keep changing your spin bowlers. Graham Swan, if they'd have sort of just ditched Graham Swan after a couple of bad games, which they did for a while, but then brought him back. When they brought him back, he was still relatively young, and he had a really good Test career. But Moeen 34 next year, Dom Bess is young. I think that you have to build for the future, and I think that you need to consider the young players coming through. And I think that Jack Leach would play more as well. I have to say, he was the pick of 2 in the second innings, certainly. So that's my opinion.
I see Moeen playing in India. I could see us playing 3 spinners, because they're going to produce the real ripping wickets for us, probably. And the only thing my only concern, nothing to moan about tonight, Dog, have I really? But the only slight concern of the England, I thought our batting at 7 downwards was it missed a Moeen and missed a Chris Wokes in there. It looks a bit like we had 4 9.5s almost.
Yeah,
So
if you put
another one of those bowlers who bats in there, but 3 spinners would.
If you put Ben Stokes and Chris Wokes back in there, that strengthens it down to 9 or 10. Then you're having Sam Curran coming in at 9 or 10.
18 bowlers, I think. I'm not sure that works, is it? But well, yeah. No, we've got incredible selection options, haven't we?
Well, there is. I mean, it's a great conversation, actually, isn't it? And I hope people are enjoying what we're rabbling on about tonight. Instead of having the verdict, you've got the Pun-Dits Panel. So hopefully you are still tuning in, so that's good, and you are asking us questions, so that's quite good. The spin department, have we got anybody underneath Don Bess and Jack Leach? Jack Leach, I wasn't so sure he did bowl well, but
second innings he did. Second innings he bowled well. I watched the first innings. No, he didn't. Second innings, particularly on the last day, he was the pick of the bowlers. I agree, he wasn't brilliant at the start, but he looked like he was getting. Bearing in mind with Jack Leach, he had a horrendous year. He was really ill last year several times. He went to New Zealand and didn't play. He had all these major issues with his stomach problems, and I think he got Crohn's or something like that, or some sort of
stomach. Played 2 games in the year, hasn't he? I think
he played 2 games in the year, and he played 2 games in the year and no first-class cricket because of his illness. So I think you can accept him as being maybe a little bit rusty. But he didn't play much at all last year, so I think that you need to. I think he's the best spinner in England at the moment.
Yeah, I don't
agree with that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it's something we've struggled with, but having the off spinner and the left armour is priceless, isn't it? I mean, you're always looking for that at club cricket, aren't you? You want either the leg spinner or the left armour. They are few and far between, aren't they?
On that theme, it's a shame Adil Rashid's not available, by the way. I'd be having a little conversation with him, I think, because I think he's still got plenty. I know he's got a shoulder problem. That's probably the reason he's not available, but I'm sure Joe's had a chat with him, because I sure would have done. But obviously, I don't think he's done with Test cricket, isn't he? Which is a shame.
Our very own Brooksy Ferret, spoke highly of Adil Rashid. I thought he was the most skillful player that he'd played with and against. So, I thought that was quite high praise coming from young Jack there. So,
Wes experience just put him in his place.
I mean, Wes Spearman is saying Adil Rashid isn't good enough for Test cricket. I don't know. I mean, given the opportunity, possibly he does turn it. He's got some good variations. Could be a handful, couldn't he? He really could.
No, I'm with Wes on this one again. He's been tried and tested, and sometimes
I think we moved on. I agree, Kieran. But
sometimes you need to move on, and there must be somebody out there as well. Underneath the current crop. I don't know who, so I'm not an aficionado of spinners below the England level. But at the end of the day, spin's always been a problem since we lost Graham Swan. Spin has been a problem for England. There hasn't been. If you look back over the years, and I'm obviously a lot younger than you two, there haven't been many class England spinners in the last 30 years. I think maybe Underwood before my time. John Embry was okay. Graham Swan, but I can't think of many others that you can really say.
Headley Verity is without doubt our best ever spin bowler.
That's even before your time, Megas. That one.
It is. We're going back to a guy who was sadly killed in the Second War, but if you check his record out, it is something else. I mean, true, great left arm spin bowler, and sadly robbed of a career like in the war. But he was in a great Yorkshire team in the 30s that dominated county cricket. Brilliant.
You see, the irony of this conversation today, just very quickly going back to the start of this conversation, a person that would have certainly some fantastic views on spin bowling would be Roger Berryman. He'd certainly
he would.
He'd certainly have some comments to make.
He would.
Yeah, I do know about Phil Edmonds, Les, but again, a bit before my time. I'm not as old as I look, Les. I do sort of vaguely remember Phil Edmonds, but I was about 6, I think, when he was playing. So
it's quite interesting, Wes has got his finger on the pulse. Verdi and Parkinson, another year or two in first cricket. I think he's probably right. I think the great thing about Lawrence is he's only 23, isn't he? And he's come from a very successful Essex team. The final of the Bob Willis Trophy. And he's contributed to that trophy, and I think that's probably one thing that we don't do well enough is some of these guys don't play enough county cricket to get that experience and then be able to come on to a test arena to put their performances that they have in first class cricket to international cricket. What's your thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, agree. Dan Lawrence as well, Daryl. Chris Silverwood, before becoming England coach, was of course Essex coach, so he would have seen Dan Lawrence develop from a 16, 18, 20-year-old. He knows how good he is. He knows it's his pick and he's backed him. And like Duncan Fletcher did with people like Michael Vaughan and Marcus Trescothick, who didn't particularly burn up county cricket, but he thought, you know what, yeah, they can do it at Test cricket. I'm sure Silverwood's thought the same with Lawrence, and good start for him.
That's good, isn't it?
He's taken a punt on somebody, and so far so good. But as I said, Meg, as it is one match only. We need to see a little bit of a run there. I mean, going back to spin, no less a sage of cricket than Wisden says that at the moment, looking purely at averages and bowling, Jack Leach is the best spinner in England. So it's not just me; it's also Wisden that's saying that. And I bow down to Wisden. I think they've got slightly more knowledge than me. So yeah, I'd like to see Jack Leach playing more often. And actually, I also agree. Although I don't agree with the decision, but I do agree that the chances are we may well see Moeen Ali playing in India and have 3 spinners, or possibly 4 spinners with Joe Root as well. Richard Giles has just said James Cole's coming up through the ranks. That's
very definitely.
I would not disagree with that, Richard, I have to say.
I think that's a good time to come in. You two are doing very well at the moment. I haven't had to use... so well done to you. Yeah, do we think the likes of a Ben Charlesworth and Jamie Coles have got a chance for international honours in the future? What's your thoughts on that, guys?
Well, being biased, I'd say yes, obviously, because they're from Oxfordshire. I think that they've both got a long way to go, clearly, but they've both had a fantastic start. We were obviously all very proud to see Ben Charlesworth's development in the Cricket World Cup for the under-19s, albeit that's 50 over stuff. James Coles has already taken some incredible first-class wickets on his debut and bowled really well, probably bowled better than he batted, actually, in that debut. He's very, very young. He's 16 years old. So, again, as I've said with regards to the likes of Dan Lawrence, we just need to give these lads time to develop and just time to understand their games. And you and I and Megas, we know Colsey and Ben really, really well. And wouldn't it be what I will say? Wouldn't it be fantastic? Wouldn't it be unbelievable to one day in maybe 5, 6, 7 years' time see those two walking out in an England shirt? I mean, how proud would the whole of Oxfordshire be if that happened?
Well, it'd be brilliant. And if you look at their records, James Cole's record, I think he got 200 or 300 at under 11 county cricket. Well, believe me, that there's not many that do that, and he's a genuine batter stroke left arm spinner. There's not many of them around, and Ben's just done it at each level he's been at, is my observation of him. And he's a classical player, bats time, and like the modern player, he can get it in the crowd as well, like everybody seems to do these days. And they great temperament, good family as well for Ben. His dad's level-headed, knows the game. He's got a good guy keeping an eye on him there, and we're biased, aren't we? But let's hope they go all the way. It'd be great, wouldn't it?
I think it would be remiss of us, Megas, not to talk about the keeping, as we've got one of the legendary keepers of Oxfordshire with us. Where is he? Where is he coming on? Sorry, no, Megas.
I'll be ready. I'm just coming. Yeah.
It would be really interesting on your views on the keeper, because I think I know where your thoughts lie. But
go
on to tell us.
We've all seen the footage. We've not seen it all, but obviously the remark about the Gabba and it's your last test, and it's like Kieran. It's like tweeting mid-match, isn't it? You're just asking for trouble. I personally, not anything goes. That's not right. But what they said for me didn't really register. If I'm honest about it, it wasn't. I think there was one semi-swear word used that I heard. The rest was just inane drivel, which I know plenty about because I've been talking it for 40 years behind the stumps of Oxfordshire cricket grounds. And for me, that's what most of it was.
Sorry, got frozen out there, guys. I had that's 1-0 to K-Dog, I'm afraid.
You set him up there, something chronic, didn't you?
You did.
You're on a roll as well. You're on a roll. I will come back to that. We will give you another chance to answer those questions. But what I was alluding to more was the keeping of the England keeper. You know, should it be Butler? Should it be Folk? Should it be Bairstow? Should it be somebody else? What's your views on it? I know quite strong views.
Changed mine, Daryl, if I'm honest, because as you know, I've not been a great fan of Butler as a keeper. I mean, 3 years ago, he was a beekeeper, as far as I could see. Bellows and a big mesh thing on his head. But I thought his keeping in this test was absolutely magnificent. And it goes to show that if you play with better players and train all the time, improve, which he's done, and fair play to the guy, I didn't think he was a good enough test keeper. But what I saw on that low, slow wicket, and that really isn't, that's when you find out how good your keeper is in those conditions. I thought he's been outstanding. Folks is probably a better keeper. And there's probably 2 or 3 other keepers, 4 or 5 in county cricket that are better out and out keepers. But he's more than good enough now to keep for England with the runs he brings as well. He's a good enough package, I think, to have nailed a good run, and they like him, don't they? And he's their man, so he's going to get a good run, and he's improved out of sight. So fair play to the guy.
Vice captain as well, isn't he?
Well, and that, yeah.
So that's how the regard they have for him. I would suggest. Kieran, I'm going to come on to you because there's a question again from Dick, and he said, "What's your views on Jack Kallis being the new England batting coach?" Now, I'll be interested in what your thoughts are on that.
Absolutely fantastic, to be honest. I think Joe Root said himself.
Sorry, that's 1 each. You're frozen out, so I'm coming over to Megas. Thoughts on Jack Kallis?
Well, there was an incredibly interesting interview with Jack Kallis about why he is the England coach. And a year ago, he was the South African batting coach. But apparently they used up their quotas of coaches of a colour, in his case white, so he couldn't be one of the coaches because he was one too many, which is a sort of not controversial. That's the way it is in South Africa. So this system has been in place for a long time, but their loss is our gain for me. I mean, we've got one of the all-time greats there, haven't we? Well, it's got to be a good thing.
It's a real interesting one, isn't it? You see these little things that happen on Facebook. Who's the best all-rounder? Is it Botham? Is it Sobers? Who is it? And Jack Kallis is always mentioned because he was good at all formats. He was quite a good catcher as well, to be fair. So your thoughts? I mean, Kieran, I'll let you come in on this. What your favourite all-rounder?
Ben Stokes.
You really changed your tune on Stokes, haven't you?
Yeah, I have, and you know the reasons why. Because he's proved that he can put difficult situations behind him, and actually he's matured and grown up, and he's realised that he's a role model for a lot of people in this country, and he's put behind him in a very professional and very impressive way issues that have gone before. And people know me, I was a massive critic of him, not because of his cricket, but because of his attitude, really. But over the last few years, he has been the world's best player all round. I mean, I said Virat Kohli is the best batter. I think he probably is. But I think in terms of the best all-round cricketer, Ben Stokes is on another completely different planet. He is right at the top at the moment, and I think he'll stay there for some time to come.
Megas, do you agree with that? I'm with you.
Yeah, he's certainly the best at the moment. The best seam bowling all-rounder. As far as my best all-rounder goes, probably the great Australian post-war Keith Miller. Not only was he a brilliant cricketer, batter, bowler, fielder, he was a fighter pilot in the war as well. And that's a bit of an all-rounder, isn't it, in my book? So Mr. Miller gets my vote.
I did think that you were talking about current all-rounders, Daryl. Actually,
I think that's the great
thing.
I'm
drifting back. Sorry, I'm off piste. Sorry.
It's great having Megas on because his history of the game is far superior to mine, I can assure you. So it's great. It's great to have him on board, guys. We've been going for over 55 minutes, believe it or not.
You said it would be half an hour. I'm going to ring my agent.
I know. Sorry,
we haven't even come on to Tim Payne properly yet. I mean, come on.
So we are going to come on to the events of the third Test match. We've mentioned the saying that Mr. Payne has given Ashwin, but what's your views on the Steve Smith incident? Megas first.
Stupid, probably, and I don't think there was a lot in it. That was more of an issue than any chat between a batsman and a keeper, in my opinion. It was just stupid. I don't think did the Indians complain about it particularly? They might have. I don't think they went and made an official complaint to the match officials, did they, or the match referee or anything? I forget. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I don't know, but it happened at the same time as the chat as well, didn't it? In a game that was sort of fizzling out, and it's the only thing to talk about. It made some headlines, added to the Test series in my opinion, in a funny way. But no, if that was against my team, Smith was doing that, I wouldn't have bothered me at all.
It's quite interesting because one of the Indians, I don't know who it was, did exactly. Was it?
Yeah.
Did the same, didn't he?
Yeah, he was taking the mickey there, wasn't he? I think. Yeah,
he was taking the mickey. It was good to see. Kieran, your view on that? I know your view has changed after you saw it a little bit more.
No, I don't think it was cheating. I think it's just Steve Smith being Steve Smith. To be honest, he's an eccentric character. I don't think the only strange thing was he wasn't batting again. But if you see his social media channels, you see what he's like. He lives, sleeps, breathes batting. And he bats in his sleep. He shadow bats in the mirror at home. He is just cricket. And I don't, he was obviously convicted, if you like, of being a cheat last year or 2 years ago in South Africa. That's past history. This wasn't cheating. This was just Steve Smith being Steve Smith. I don't think there was anything in it. I mean, the pitch itself was as hard as concrete. So I don't think that him doing a mark on the sort of popping crease, I don't think that's going to have made any difference whatsoever. As I mentioned to you, Daryl, offline the other day, the thing that I think that should have happened, and this is coming from an umpire perspective, and not just that, but also the shenanigans is the umpire should have stepped in. And I don't believe he did that again, because this is actually a sensitive comment, but there you go.
Sorry, 2-1 to Megas with only a minute and a bit to go.
Why ask me then?
Well, it's the idea, isn't it? It's the idea. That's amused me anyway.
You got something chronic there.
We're going to finish on your views, Megas, on sledging generally and perhaps banter within cricket. I mean, I've been on the end of a lot of stick over the years from pretty much everywhere. For boring the pants off of everybody, quite frankly. But what's your thoughts on the banter, borderline sledging?
I think it's changed. I mean, I can't speak for what goes on at the highest level, but there is, in my view, there's way less now than there ever used to be. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I think umpires are more wise to it now. They've got their ear around a lot more. I mean, I played in a team, Dale, as you know, and we not pushed it. We went over the line many times. We really did. We did that today. We probably have.
Sorry, that's 2 each. I thought that might come up.
Yeah. Kieran, well, thanks for that. That was good. There's something I shouldn't have said then if I'd gone and carried on.
Kieran, over to you.
I daren't say anything, to be honest. So, where were we? What were we talking about? I can't remember.
I think the Payne incident. If I was Tim Payne, I'd be speaking to my agent to find out what the after-dinner circuit in in Mumbai because he's
3-2 to Kane.
Well, there's a gap. There's a gap going on the Masked Cricketer, so get on there. Get on it.
I will let him. I will speak to him actually.
I mean, we've had a few things with Wes Spearman, nothing against shadow batting, approach to the crease as if he was a left-handed, and remarked a guard, not cheating, just gamemanship. Richard Giles, best players have to be from the modern era as the game evolves and fitness and equipment improves. Biggest difference is fitness, and none of the older stars would live with a Ben Stokes is Richard's opinion. So it's been great to have his opinions on here tonight, guys, hasn't it? And the interactive questions that we've been getting from the viewers. So from that alone, they've stayed with us. So we thank you for that. But
they haven't left.
They haven't left. So I will just, I think I wanted to keep this as an hour and we've just gone over it. So guys, is there anything left for you to contribute tonight? Megas, what would you like to say?
No, I really enjoyed it, mate, to be fair. It's been good. I wish we'd have had a moan about something, but there's not been anything to moan about, dog, really, has there?
I know, it's really worrying. Really worrying. There is one thing to moan about, Megas. Simon Davies just asking, will Leeds United win another game this season?
Oh, God, no.
There you go.
I'm just glad your budget ran out and you could get me in for a show. Anyway, I'm pleased about that. And
Megas, I will have to
thanks
say,
for asking.
We had the assistant manager, Lee Bradbury from Crawley, on our radio show on Friday.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He said your manager was very humble in defeat and actually came over in his broken English and said well played, and he was very gracious in defeat. So I think that sort of says something for your manager, actually.
That's comforting after we were beaten by Noak reserves. Yeah, thanks, Darryl. I'll get your point. That was good. It's good to see him. But,
and Megan, Richard Giles has just said you can take the mask off now, by the way.
Yeah.
Kieran, I normally come to you. You normally say, no, I haven't got anything else to add, and then go on for 10 minutes. But what would you like to say, young man, as I've done that to you several times?
Well, I've won the battle, so that's good. I haven't got a massive amount to say. All I will say is those that are watching, and there's not a massive amount watching, but there's enough, and it's been worthwhile doing. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. We're trying to get the subscriptions up to 1,000, which is a long way off. We're just shy of 100 at the moment, which is actually it's not bad, but we want to get to 1,000. And I know from a fellow YouTuber that the more subscriptions we get, essentially the more it will grow exponentially, I suppose is the word. And if we can get to 1,000, it enables us to monetize the channel, and that will all be funding to go to what we do all this for, and what we started the Masked Cricketers for, which was for the Lord's Tavern and supporting Oxfordshire disability cricket. And that's why we're doing all this. One final comment from Megas. What are you doing on the 31st of May, Megas? If we're not all locked down still, are you available to stand by?
Yeah, just dinner, darling, here or what? What's going on?
No, I just think that your performance behind the stumps in the first charity game. I mean, I'm not a selector. Obviously, Darryl.
If required, like last time, if there's no one else, if I'm still walking by then, love to.
Because
it'd get in a bar, wouldn't it, and have a proper beer and a proper chat.
Just let's hope this cricket season starts on time and not that shenanigans that we had last year and all the let's just get out there and get on it.
I'm going to be positive again. I think it will. There you go.
Good man. Well, that's where being positive. Don't start now. I'll go and answer that call from Andy Sabin, I think.
Yeah, Megas. We're looking to do this again after the second Test match in Sri Lanka. So we probably will do it. If the comments are a positive one, we will continue with the Pun-Dits Panel. And we'd like you to come back. We probably will have another person on as well with you. So we'll have 4 in.
Let me check the diary. Yeah, I'm free. Yeah, okay.
What is there? Straight enough. So I'm going to say again a big thank you to everybody who's watched, but a big thank you to our guest presenter Neil Megson. Megas.
I loved it. Really enjoyed it. Been good.
And my normal co-host K-Dog. Thank you as well. He's going to say
Thank
something.
you. No, I was just looking behind Megan to see if I could see his bendy bully, but I can't. So
that's not a euphemism, apparently. No. Okay. And on that note, I think we better say goodbye. But please join us again. We will advertise it a little bit more for the next episode of the Pundits Panel. And we look forward to seeing you then. And in that time, please keep safe and keep well. And we'll see you in a bit. Bye.
Cheers, guys.
stay on, Meg.